February 28th changed everything. Airlines were scrambling, routes were shutting down, and suddenly getting back to Mexico wasn't easy anymore. My March 6th flight from Bangkok to Atlanta was hanging in the balance. Then I saw the ticket prices. $4,000 for a one-way economy ticket back to Mexico. No. So now I had a real decision to make. Do I spend $4,000 just to get home back to Mexico, or do I stay in Thailand and figure it out? And here's the crazy part. That same $4,000 could cover more than 3 months of living in Thailand. So I started thinking, what if I just stayed? Not forever, but long enough to ride out these outrageous ticket prices. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just a travel decision, this was actually a life decision. Because living in Thailand versus living in Mexico, those are two completely different games. Let's get it. After spending a few weeks traveling through Thailand from Bangkok all the way up to Chiang Mai and back down to Chiang Mai, I started to get a real feel for what life here would actually look like. And pretty quickly, one thing became very clear. If I stayed in Thailand, Chiang Mai would be my spot. And that's where things got a little interesting, because the familiarity with Chiang Mai made staying feel like a real option. The climate was way better than Bangkok, the pace of life was slower, and the city itself was just manageable. Not to mention that it was also the capital coffee of Thailand. So that definitely checked a lot of boxes for me, which actually made the decision even harder, not easier, because Bangkok is on a completely different level. We're talking the size of New York City with a population just under Mexico City. So it's massive. We're talking crazy traffic, the heat is no joke, but to be fair, it has all the amenities of a mega city. So now I'm stuck with the question, do I choose comfort and simplicity or access and scale? For me, comfort, coffee, and simplicity win every single time. And even though I only spent a few days in Chiang Mai, it left the biggest impression on me. Out of everywhere I've visited in Thailand, the one place I'd go back to without hesitation is Chiang Mai. But here's the thing. This wasn't a new idea for me. I got several friends who used to live in Chiang Mai for years, and now they live in Merida. So I've had this conversation before, and every time that I asked them what did they love about Chiang Mai, I kept hearing some of the same themes. Themes like the Thai people are genuinely kind, the cost of living is very low, the community is actually really strong, and you still have access to everything you need. Does that sound a little familiar? Because those are the exact same reasons many of us choose to live in Merida, Mexico. So now I'm doing the math, and for $4,000, I could probably live in Chiang Mai for at least 3 months, if not more. And at one point, I almost convinced myself that this actually made sense. I could stay, reset, and slow down for just a moment. For a brief period of time, it felt like the smarter move, and then reality set in. Because it's not easy just to pick up and move to Thailand. First problem I had is I was there on a tourist visa, and that visa was only good for 60 days. So the clock was already ticking. I had already been there for 14 or 15 days. My second problem is that my bills in Mexico don't stop just because I'm in Thailand. Now I'm managing 2 households at the same time. But the real problem was that I was 10,000 miles away and 13 hours ahead of my wife and my kids. That's not just inconvenient, that's a completely different life. So on paper, staying in Chiang Mai, Thailand looked like it made sense. But in reality, it wasn't even close. So if you're comparing moving to Thailand versus moving to Mexico, here's how I would break it down, because I had to think through this in real time. First of all, let's start with the pros of living in Thailand. Number one is the lower cost of living. Almost everything from housing, food, transportation, even clothes are cheaper across the board. And from a budget perspective, Thailand definitely wins over living in Merida, Mexico in particular. The food in Thailand was simply amazing. I didn't have one bad meal the entire time. And the Thai people, they know how to throw down in the kitchen. Now, I'll call this a tie between Thailand and Mexico because Mexico has amazing food. But if I'm just comparing Thailand to just the cuisine here in the Yucatan Peninsula, I got to give it to Thailand. Number 3 is the people and the culture in Thailand is extremely rich, and I experienced a level of kindness and consideration for others that stood out to me, especially when it comes to noise. Mexico is a loud place. There's often barking dogs, music, horns honking, and all sorts of things. Thailand was really the exact opposite. In fact, one of the things that surprised me most was riding the subway or the SkyTrain in Bangkok, and nobody was talking. Everybody was looking at their phones, but there was zero conversation really between people, which I thought was crazy. The car was eerily quiet. Now, another pro is safety. I felt safe everywhere I went in Thailand, including the major mega city of Bangkok. And then the last thing I will say as a pro is just the quality of life that you can get when you're earning in dollars and also spending in baht. Your money just stretches farther. You can do things like, we're talking like $6 Thai massages every day if you wanted to. Your money goes much farther than it does in Mexico, as an example. All right, so let's talk about the cons of living in Thailand. First of all, it's just too daggone far. Thailand is 10,000 miles away from my family and my friends, and flights easily can run you $1,500 plus per person in economy. So not only is it expensive to get there, but it's on the other side of the world, and you really feel that. The next thing that is a detractor for me for moving to Thailand is just the visa options. And it's much harder to get temporary or permanent residency in Thailand. And almost every single person that I know who left Thailand mentioned visas as their #1 issue when talking about moving back. Mexico is much easier to get a visa than in Thailand. So in that area, Mexico wins with no question. Number 3, and this one, I've experienced a language barrier before, but the language barrier with speaking Thai versus speaking Spanish was completely different. Thai is a tonal language. It's complex. And for me, it was way harder than trying to learn Spanish. I was pulling out my translator quite frequently when trying to make sure things were correct in Thailand. So, I had a harder time just adjusting because I couldn't understand any of the signs if they weren't in English, or even the language just did not ring in my ear because it was very, very different. And really the number 4 thing is overall, there's a huge cultural adjustment with an Asian culture versus living in Mexico, as an example. There's a lot more to learn and adjust to in Asia than in Mexico for me personally. So that would also be a huge detractor for me wanting to live in Thailand. And then finally, the time zone. Being 13 plus hours ahead of, or 12 hours ahead of the East Coast and 13 hours ahead of Merida, and trying to run a business was absolutely difficult, right? Most of my clients are in the US or Canada. I do have clients all over the world, but it was brutal. So from that perspective, trying to work and earn a living and run a business, Mexico makes that much easier. So for me, it really came down to 3 things, right? And that's distance from my family, the language barrier, and also the fact that the visas are not easy to come by in order to be legally working in Thailand. And those things alone make Thailand a non-starter for me for living long term. And the time difference with running my business, well, it made it even more difficult. At the end of the day, whether you're considering moving to Thailand or moving to Mexico, the key factors don't change. Finances, lifestyle, housing, mobility, and family, all of those things matter. And if you don't get those right, it doesn't matter how beautiful the location is or how exotic the food. If you're thinking about moving to Mexico, don't guess if your plan is complete. Go to roadmaptoexpat.com and evaluate your plan for free before small mistakes turn into expensive ones. All right, guys, so thank you so much for joining me on this journey to Thailand. I hope you enjoyed this series. This is the last video in that series, and I wanted to make this for you guys because you specifically asked to compare Mexico to Thailand. So leave me comments below and let me know what you enjoyed most about this video series of Thailand. From here on out, we'll be talking about Mexico for at least the foreseeable future. But thank you so much for joining me and checking out all the videos I made. If you want to see more of the journey in Thailand, check out this video over here. And until next time, MexitPlans Monty, I'm out.